It's like when I'm on Titans, I'm just part of G Unit. So like I try to just give the hot bars for like that 116 I have. You know what I mean? But
wait,
then
which member of G Unit are you?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comics and Chronic. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Iannaccio. Joining me, as always, are the friendly neighborhood stoners, Cody, Walaka Cannon, and Jake FH. Today, I'm excited. We're interviewing, hands down, one of the coolest and most talented writers in comics and film today. He's written for Detective Comics, Batman and the Outsiders, Killmonger, X-Men Fallen Angels, the Vertigo series American Carnage, and his new creator-owned series from AWA Upshot called Chariot. He's also the writer for HBO MAX DC series Titans, which just premiered their third season. It's awesome. Ash vs. Evil Dead on Stars, and holy shit, the upcoming Power Rangers movie, which I'm so hyped for, as you could tell. Please welcome to the podcast, Bryan Edward Hill.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Are you a Randy Macho Man fan?
Oh, a little bit. I mean, like, I grew up on wrestling, right? Like, but,
Nice.
I was a Dusty Rhodes dude.
Oh, okay.
The American Dream.
For a long time. I'll tell you about them hard times, Daddy.
One of the best on the mic ever.
Nice.
Yeah. No, Dusty was great. Dusty was great. But yeah, that was like my whole, like that was my era. Like from like the early days with the Hulkamania and all that, and then all the way up to Attitude, and then after Attitude, I kind of stepped away because I got busy. And I don't know any of these new people. I mean, I know Cena. Like, I know the ones you need to know.
Yeah.
But like, I think after Paige left, I have no idea who these folks are.
Diamond Dallas, shout out.
No, not Diamond Dallas.
Diamond Dallas Paige. Paige, the diva.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
You've never seen Paige?
No.
Yeah.
She's like super pale.
It's like super pale British.
Yeah.
Oh no, I stopped watching around.
They made Wrestling with My Family.
I stopped watching around like 2017. So like I would have ended on like Trish Stratus and Lolita.
That was way before. Trish Stratus was 2017.
No, that's like 2007.
That was about like
2007.
I think Paige was around like in like 16, 17 or something like that. I think so. I think she was.
Well, damn.
She twitches now. She's like a streamer or something. Plays video games.
Oh, nice. Damn. I really thought you guys were talking about Diamond Dallas Page.
I got love for Diamond Dallas for sure. No shots fired.
He's still cool. He does yoga. He's still doing his thing.
Yeah. He's positive. He's holistic.
So, is there anything we can get you to spill the beans on at all about Power Rangers?
No. Nah, man. Gangsters move in silence.
So you can neither confirm or deny whether Jason David Frank is going to reprise his role as the Green Ranger?
I can neither confirm nor deny that Jason David Frank is going to reprise his role as Green Ranger. I mean, all I'll say is that Jonathan Entwistle is a really, really smart dude and a brilliant director, great mind, and I just think the whole thing is in good hands.
Nice.
Yeah, I grew up on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, so I'm very excited to see how this turns out.
Word. Yeah. No, it's really Jonathan's show, so. He's just a really cool cat. He's a lot of times you work with directors, and sometimes directors can be a little in and out. They're not really present, but dude's got a real head on his shoulders. And I really dug his Netflix show. I thought that was really cool.
What was his Netflix show?
Oh, it's got one of those like hipster titles, and I always mess it up. It's not Sorry to Bother You. It's not I Am Not Okay with This. Is that
End
it?
of the fucking world? Was that
Maybe it's end of the. See, if your title is a sentence, you go and me with these sentence title. Like there's something that I was vibing with last week, and I know there is cherry and flavor in the title. I think the name of it is Brand New Cherry Flavor.
Okay.
But I always mess this thing. I'm like, yeah, it's cherry flavor ice cream. Is a cherry sundae. Is old new cherry. I don't. It's cool though. I think it's Rosa Salazar is in there. It's like a horror, sort of like Nicholas Refn vibe thing. It's on Netflix. I think it just dropped last week. So,
nice.
But yeah. No, and Wilson's a cool guy, but I can tell you nothing.
Nice. Okay, well, something you can talk about. I just, in preparation for the interview, finished your, not the entire run, but a good chunk of your run on Batman and the Outsiders, and absolutely loved it. How was it writing a Batman story that wasn't about Batman?
Thank you. Well, it's not that tricky because there's a lot of Bat family stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a little bit of a prototype for it. And the nice thing about writing a group of characters is you can approach them in an iconic way a lot of the time. And I'm so fluent in Batman that I don't need much space in a story to really do what I want to do with Batman. Like doing just a Batman focused story would be really cool. But I feel like I know the character so well that I can kind of bring him in and out and still say what I want to say about it, right? Like, even there's a couple characters in comics that I feel like that. Like Superman is one of them, Batman is one of them. Probably have the same perspective on Diana, right? So, like, in Detective, Superman shows up for like a hot second,
right?
But that's like all I need from him, in that moment to get what I want. So that wasn't really the trick. The trick really is a lot of those characters in The Outsiders don't have the seminal 4-issue thing that you read and you know everything about them, right? Like there's a lot of Jefferson out there because Tony Isabella, he put a lot out there. So there's a lot I could draw from for him, and Duke, I'm good friends with Scott. And so, I kind of know Duke because him and Tony Patrick, and I keep up with their work. That's cool. Cassie Kane, I've been a big fan ever since like the first, Damian Scott pencils of her, hit the shelves, right?
Yeah.
So, those characters, okay, Katana was a little tricky because, she's been in a lot of stuff for a lot of times, but like, what is the seminal Katana story? With someone's a Katana fan, what am I going to hand you to be like, this is why I'm down? So she was the one where I had to do what I felt was a little bit of heavy lifting to try to make her a person, to add dimension to it, right? Like, like I'm, not throwing any shots backwards at people who worked on it before, but when you have these characters who don't have like the Frank Miller thing, who don't have like the Neil Gaiman thing or the Grant Morrison thing, right? That's tricky because you're charting some new territory with that. And you want to explore, you want to be able to take things in new places, but you also don't want to piss anybody off on the way, right? So that gets to be a little tricky. But in general, it's just a fun process, being like such a Bat guy.
Is Batman one of your favorite superheroes?
I mean, I like a lot of superheroes, but Batman was one of the ones I was collecting as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That was, if you go into my old pull boxes, like you're going to see mostly Detective, Batman, Shadow of the Bat, and then when I walked away from monthlies and really got into like the graphic novels and, more of that Brit invasion kind of vibe, that's all Batman, like even not just the Brit stuff. I mean, obviously like, Grant, and now Grant's not British. He's like Scottish or something. So, like, it's great, Batman is great. But like, Arkham, Dark Knight Returns, Year One, Batman the Cult, Night Cries, even like Digital Justice, which is a really weird book with like the first CGI ever. Back in the day, it was like, ooh, now like this looks like a vaporwave catalog. But like, it's just like a sphere and a triangle. You're like, ooh, that's deep. It's like when you watch the first Tron now and you're like, ooh, okay. All right. But yeah, so like that was really where my comic book thing was. I remember being at NYU and I had to do some kind of story dissertation or something, some class or whatever it was. And I taught for that class. I did one on Superman, Batman, and the American diaspora. The immigration story and the whole thing, and kind of like, so I've been like deep into that side of it for a bit.
Nice.
So anytime you're throwing me into Gotham in any way, I feel like I can swim.
Nice.
The side of the DCU that I am least familiar with is the cosmic side.
Nice.
So like your Green Lantern Corps, like that kind of stuff. Like I'm still really new to all that. Like I did a short Green Lantern story in a book a little bit ago, and I had to do some heavy lifting research on that because I just never really collected any of that stuff. Didn't dislike it; it just never really found its way to me.
I'm 100% in the same boat. It's like one of Jake's favorites, but I am
I love Green
it's like the
Lantern.
section of comics I'm the least familiar with is DC's Cosmic.
Yeah, I mean, I do love that Cosmic Odyssey miniseries that came out like in the late 80s, like the early 90s or something. I thought that one was really dope. It's like about like, the anti-life equation and all that Kirby and, and all that stuff. I thought that was really cool. But mostly, yeah, I was kind of into the more like, not grounded, but just like the more, I guess, relatable on a human level characters in comics tend to be where I live, so like, your Captain Americas and your Matt Murdocks, your Bruce Waynes, like that kind of thing.
Nice. I wanted to ask, so the way you approach, so you write for Titans, and obviously the Bat family is a big part of that show, especially this season. Is the way you approach the characters different than the way you would approach them if you were doing a comic book storyline?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. So when you work on a television show, your job, if you're not the showrunner, and I'm not, is to facilitate the vision of the showrunner. Right. That's why you're there. So the way I write those characters in that show, that's the way the showrunner wants us to approach those characters. Now, if I were to do things on my own in a comic book, I'd probably come at it from like a little bit of a different angle, and all that, right? But I enjoy the exploration of something in a different way. Because the nice thing is, with the way my career is, because I have my hands on a bunch of steering wheels all the time, I never really feel like I can't get my voice out there if the one thing I'm working on isn't the thing that I would do. There's always a way for me to express myself, and so I like the opportunity to approach things from a different point of view because that unlocks some of my creativity and all of that. So it's pretty distinctive, between, you can watch the show when you can read my books, right? Like, So you see like the difference in, my Bruce in the comics versus the Bruce we have in the show, right? So,
yeah.
But that's because I'm just part of a much larger thing,
right, that
when I'm
makes
on the
sense.
show. It's like when I'm on Titans, I'm just part of G Unit. So like I try to just give the hot bars for like that 116 I have, you know what I mean? But
wait,
then
which member of G Unit are you?
I think I'd be like Lloyd Banks, man. I think I'd just lay up in the cut. I'd lay up in the cut and have the hot bars, and then I'll whisper on the mic a little bit and give you some of that, you know what I'm saying? We split it, we hit it, we split it, we get it. So I think I'd be more like that. Lloyd's always like a little sinister.
Yeah. He's a lurker. He lurks in the shadows.
Yayo's having fun. Yeah, see, Lloyd's lurking. Lloyd is on Overwatch with the sniper rifle.
Yeah,
that's what I'm about. Like 50 walks into the bank and everything, and has the note, give him the money, and like Yayo's come behind the wheel. But Lloyd got you like Val Kilmer, like he Yeah, but then when you do your own thing, you got your own project, then you can rap a little different because you're kind of on your own doing it that way.
Nice. That's awesome.
First Lloyd Banks reference on this podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a bet.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. See, I told you, I don't need no weed. No, we built different.
I wanted to ask about in Titans, Scarecrow. He's a stoner.
Yeah. You know what? Oh, I'm not even going to take credit for that. So there's a writer in the room. His name is Tom Pabst, and Tom is just a dope dude, right? He's just a really, really cool guy, and he had that idea, and we kind of fell in love with it in the room, and we're like, yeah, let's go ahead and run with that and see how we can play with it a little bit. And then Vincent really came alive when he was messing around with it. And that's honestly one of the more exciting things for me about the season was to be able to work with Jonathan Crane. Because that's
he's a great
kind of
character.
interesting. And I love what Cillian did in the movies, and I think he's really good. But he had a bit of a reduced role as the franchise went on.
For
He was
sure,
basically a cameo in the third one, right?
Oh yeah,
And so
definitely.
to be able to kind of work with the manipulative aspects of Crane and bounce him off of some characters, thought that's been a lot of fun. And I think as the season plays out, hopefully viewers and fans will enjoy where we're going with all that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes.
I ain't telling you. He said it out though. He was like, "I'm excited to see where that goes."
Yeah. Damn. So you won't tell me if Hank Hall becomes like Monarch or something like that.
Yeah, you'll have to watch the thing. You know what I mean? You got HBO MAX. You can sign up for a subscription right now. I believe they might have a promotion going on or something.
So I know you tweet a lot about Michael Mann. Is he like one of your favorite directors?
Yeah, man. Yeah, Michael Mann is probably my favorite filmmaker.
Nice.
Because he makes those like poetic gangsta epics. And it's I'm just like really, really into his stuff. And then also like even when I watch like the old reruns or the old Hulu archives of Miami Vice, the old television show, just like the way that he would bring in pop cultural aesthetics and like push things forward a little bit. I just always thought it was like super cool. I mean, the show was before my time, but I was aware of it, but I was like, okay, I don't know what I
Yeah.
And it kind of came back to it later on. And then when Heat dropped in, I think 95, that was a big year because Heat and Seven were like the same year, right?
Oh.
That was a crazy
Such a good year.
movie year. Movie year. And Heat was just like my jam. I was like, whoa. It was crazy. And so, it's been a big fan of his work because there's a little philosophy in it. And what I try to do in my own stuff is drop ideas in there, like drop some concepts, some theses that the reader may or may not agree with, but maybe they can think about, how that could apply to their own lives. I mean, I used to get that out of comic books when I was a kid. I used to read something and Miller would write something in a book and that would kind of burn itself into my mind a little bit, and I carry it with me, or Claremont, Morrison, Gaiman, those kind of fellows, Alan Moore, So not that I'm on the level of any of those fellows, I'm not, but like I try
your comics have that effect for me though. That's why I love your writing.
That's kind. Yeah, appreciate that. Like, I mean, that's like the kind of thing that I glean from his work really is just like kind of, the philosophical ideas around this kind of conflict and the price of righteousness and the price of sticking to who you are. I mean, that's a big, I'm starting to sound like Russ now. I'm about to get real positive on y'all. So, but like a big part of charting a life for yourself is sticking to the essence of who you are, right? And even though people in your life are going to ask you to change or try to demand that you change or tell you to kind of cut away little pieces of yourself, in order to move forward, then you wind up with nothing left when you get across the finish line, right? So like, I think it's really important to maintain that sense of who you are because right now is the dangerous time for me. Like people would think that the dangerous time is before you, succeed at anything and don't even know if you're going to make it. And and I had those years and, they're lean, a lot of ramen noodles, a lot of sleeping on people's couches, a lot of not knowing what the day was going to bring and all that. That wasn't pleasant. Certainly don't want to go back through that. But now is the other time that's dangerous because now is the time when people kind of listen to you a little bit, and people like to talk to you and they gas you up sometimes. But then you got to wonder, like, what are they trying to do? What trying to get out of me?
Do you mean because like you're more established than you were earlier in your career? That
like when you start to get established and you start to have a little, and I got a small platform, a little bit of value, but when you start to have like a little bit of value, then you got to be kind of careful about who's influencing you and how are they influencing you, especially in LA when you're in an environment where a lot of people just have another agenda when they're talking to you. Like so many relationships in the city are transactional.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, they seem friendly, and they are friendly on the surface.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like your day ones, right? So I have really good friends that I've kept for 2 decades, 3 decades, right? Like Nelson Blake, who, you know, he and I worked on a book called Romulus, and we've done like some one-shot stuff for Marvel and the rest of it. I've known Nelson for like 20-something years, right? So like,
nice.
He's a dude that will give me like straight up feedback just on work, on life, you know, and I talk to him a few times a week, and we just kind of discuss things philosophically, and it really helps keep me grounded, you know, and that's one of the things that got to be cognizant of as you move through like the entertainment game. Is so easy to lose that grounding. So I think back to Michael Mann characters and like De Niro, and that's the discipline, you know, and all that stuff, and like this like kind of vibe of, you know, 30 seconds or less if you see the heat coming around the corner, you know, and I kind of have that mentality, right? Like I could just walk away from this whole thing tomorrow, and I'd be good. I feel like I have fulfilled every promise I needed to fulfill to my 13-year-old self, right?
Nice.
Like, and here's the thing: you got to keep that in mind too, right? When you start to succeed, right? Really think about in specifics what you want to accomplish. Now, things are going to change; they'll change. It's cool, but know what it is in specifics, because it'll tell you when you can say no, right? You know, because if someone has an opportunity, but it's not really an opportunity for you because of various reasons, maybe it's just not something you're into. Maybe, you know, the person that has the opportunity is someone that you know isn't fun to work with. You know, maybe the process in some way will subvert some part of you that matters to you, but you feel like, well, I had to do it because I need it. But if you know specifically where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do, then you can say no in confidence. And so when something comes my way and I just, for various reasons, it's not the right fit, I can just say no. You know, and I think it's really important to have that.
Have you had a moment where you've had to compromise maybe like your artistic view for kind of doing something more mainstream Hollywood? Not like a specific story, but like, have you had that point in your life where you've kind of had to like, all right,
not like in an insidious way, you know, like I'll say not like in a, you know, like Mr. Hollywood comes to the door and says, you need to eat the baby before you get to, like, it's not like that, you know, it's not like some dude comes in with the one eye, you know, and it's like, you know. There you go. That's your thumbnail right there.
Yeah.
It's not like that, but it's more like the awareness that you are in a corporate system.
Yeah.
That has corporate system rules that you have to abide by, right? That you're in a world where risk carries a lot of fear with it. You know, where you know that the bold choice will be the harder choice to sell upstairs, sell in the room, sell on the phone, sell on the Zoom, whatever it is. So there's a lot of self-limiting that goes on. It's not like someone externally tells you you need to. You just kind of pick it up in an ambient way. Well, let me shave my corners down a little bit. You know, let me not go down this way, or let me not bring up this idea, because you know that that might not really, which is fine, right? Because what we trade as creators, when we trade our artistic freedom, we trade it for scale. Right? So you can do anything you want, but then you might not get it on a platform where it reaches a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Hollywood side of things, and you can't do anything you want. Got a lot of masters, right? You got a lot of people that are able to put their thumbprint on the clay of whatever you're doing, right? But the trade-off is, if it gets to people, it gets released to people on a scale.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot bigger. So there's always the push and pull, you know, and it's, I'm not anti one or pro the other. I think it requires balance, right? I think, you know, for just economic reasons, career stability reasons, probably a good thing to have a little systemic platform that you're working with. Yeah. But for your own growth as a person and for the quality of your work, also probably a good thing to make sure you're expressing yourself in an unfettered way somewhere, even if it's just like, you're freestyling on the mic on Saturday nights or whatever, right? Just to get that out of you, because you'll learn some stuff from that you might not learn from it over here. Got deep.
Yeah, that was nice. It felt good. I needed that, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, since y'all are smoking, I thought I would give y'all something to feel like. We said it's like the two sides. You got to do the two sides.
Dropping those nuggets.
Honestly, that's what it feels like scrolling through your Twitter a lot of the time. You always have like these nuggets of wisdom, or more than nuggets a lot of the time.
Oh man, well, I'm always thinking about things, and I don't know anything, but I like to at least share like kind of what's on my mind, because maybe I don't know, maybe it'll help somebody, maybe someone will disagree, but that'll lead them to a different place. Like I honestly don't particularly enjoy just like talking about like, I have a book that's coming out that I want you to pre-order. Could you pre-order my book, please? It would be cool if you pre-ordered my book. Like I don't, like look. Here's how I feel about that. I know that for myself, I will purchase someone's stuff if I think they're interesting.
100%.
If I'm interested in them, I'll follow them. When they do their work, right? Like, call to action, asking me to do a thing. Like, yeah, I like to be aware of what's coming out, but if that's all your social media is basically you selling, you're not giving me anything about you. So what I try to do is be pretty transparent with people and, have like a no cap lifestyle where you go to my Twitter feed and you get a sense of who I am in the moment, right? And then if you think that's interesting, maybe you'll mess with some of my work. And I've had that happen, like where someone's like, you know what, I didn't even know who you were. Like I was following somebody else and you were talking about something, and then I saw that you were like a writer and I bought like American Carnage and I thought it was dope and, good to talk to you, right? So I try to figure out how to keep Twitter positive, man, because there's so many ways it just gets all ugly and stupid.
Very easy.
And try to elevate it a little bit. While I'm there, I'm just trying to kind of keep it good.
Yeah, I think you do that, man. Like it's I don't think I'm the only one saying that either. I see a lot of fans of yours saying that on Twitter too. It's like you just have that space where you just seem very like, I felt like in whatever way, like I felt like if I reached out to you, you would be down to do this. I don't know why. You just seem like an open person, and you seem like we just even talking before you came on, we were like, this is going to be fun. You just have this vibe about you.
Yeah, I mean, look, like schedule dependent, time depending. Look, if somebody is gracious enough to offer you their platform, then I'm happy to take it, and be able to get out there and reach people that I might not know, because people who are watching and listening, whatever you're doing, they probably don't follow me on Twitter, they probably don't follow me on this, right? So, it's all good. And I really do support independent media in general. Nice. I think that's critically important that we do support independent media, because we don't want things to funnel into these mega corporations, because now everything is even like more vertically integrated than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Yeah. And so you start to get that monolith, and then you get that monolithic voice, and you get that monolithic point of view. And that's not good for like cultural growth. I mean, there's always going to be a measure of that. You can't escape it. It just is what it is. The Tower of Sauron is going to be there. Right? I will look upon us all.
Yeah.
But like, it's also good to support like independent media and be able to get like different voices in there, different perspectives. I'm a huge supporter of diversity of thought. Even though I'm super progressive and I'm snowflake as hell, right? If you notice on social media, if someone comes at me, Trump the slump god 69, right? Like comes at me about something, if you notice, I don't really get ugly back, right? Like right. I'll be like, okay, I think you're bugging, but let me try to engage you a little bit and like try to keep this, because I do think diversity of thought is really important. And so I'm, the podcasts and YouTube, independent media, that's where I honestly consume most of my stuff. And so I'm happy to participate on these platforms.
I guess I got to change my Twitter handle now. You got me. I'm Trump slump
That was you,
69, 69.
Trump the slump? Trump the slump dog? Yeah, man. Yeah. I knew it was you. Fredo, I knew it was you.
Oh, so you're also obviously super into like gangster cinema. What's like some of your favorites?
Oh man, it kind of rotates. I mean, like Scarface is probably one of my favorites. But the funniest thing is everyone I know who loves Scarface forgets like the last 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my favorite thing growing up was always you put Scarface on, and then all of my cousins were like, "See, if Tony had just, he would have." You know, and it's like I don't think you really understand how this game works.
Yeah.
You know, like Scarface, The Godfather series. You know, King of New York is a good one. Little Christopher Walken.
Mean Streets.
Cuff yourself to the chair. It's a stupid thing to do. Mean Streets, yeah, a little bit. I'll tell you what, Mean Streets. It took me a bit to get to Scorsese's work because it felt like everybody in Scorsese's movies would have called me an eggplant and put me in a trunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I don't think these fellas want me watching this movie. I don't think he making movies for me. You know? So it took me a little bit, especially when you were in New York, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was in NYU at the time. And let me tell you, like, them boys from Mean Streets, you don't mess with them boys, right? Like, it's a little different over there. But eventually I grew to, like, really appreciate it. You know, I think, you know, and also it's like Scorsese is really good at, like, the ugliness of those worlds, right? Like, the messiness of it. And I think I lean towards more of the romanticized vision of it, like the Shakespearean elegance of the Corleone family.
Yeah.
You know? You know, all that Coppola, anytime someone sees an orange, they go and get thrown out a window, right? Like all of that, like that kind of stuff, you know, or like even though Scarface is ugly, there's such a lurid fever dream quality to it.
Yeah.
You know, that like it's ugly, but it's also just kind of like this weird dream of a movie, you know, like Carlito's Way.
I love Carlito's
is like
Way.
that too, where it's on Earth technically, but like not in a way that Earth actually works.
It's more like it's like
so,
a hyper version of like the mafia world.
Yeah, it's like hyper real.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
like Breaking Bad. A lot of people compare Breaking Bad to Sopranos, and I think Breaking Bad is in a hyper universe.
Super hyper real. It's super hyper real. You know, like New Jack City. You know,
I love New Jack City.
That was when I was a kid, man. Oh man, New Jack City.
Good.
You know,
they have some of the best lines in them. I want to kill you so bad.
I was wearing a turtleneck and a chain for a long time.
Yeah.
$5 ass down before I make change. There's a really funny line reading in New Jack City that they left in the movie, and I don't really understand why Mario Van Peebles left the movie. But there's a line in the movie when I guess the Italian guy raises up on Nino, and Nino is like, "Nah, I'm not going to pay you the money." And the Italian guy gets mad, and he kind of bugs out the conference room, and he's like, "Yeah. You should go get some chicken Alfredo." Chickens Alfredo. And I was like, what does chickens Alfredo mean? Like if I ever bump into Wesley, I'm gonna be like, Wesley, yeah, big fan. You know, Blade, yo, you my dog. What is chickens Alfredo all about? But yeah. So those are you know kind of the joints I like.
So is Ivan Ooze the main villain of the Power Rangers?
You broke up a little bit. I couldn't hear you. You're about to get a whole bunch of Jay-Z non-statements. You know? Yeah, well, you know, like what's going on with the movie is cool. It's cool, you know, and the movie's gonna be good, and it come out, and y'all gonna really love it.
So it's funny between the references to Lloyd Banks and Russell Simmons and Jay-Z. I take it you're a huge hip hop fan?
I mean, I listen to a bunch of stuff, man. I listen to synthwave, you know, I love jazz. Nice. Lately, I've been working on a music project.
Yeah, I saw that you were. I wanted to ask. Do you care to talk about it a little?
I mean, I can't. I'm not gonna give like super details, but so way back in the day, I would produce some music, and you know, kind of kept it going through the years on the down low, right? Because I didn't want to make it a revenue stream I had to really care about because I got to sell all my writing.
Yeah.
So music was just like a place where I could just kind of vibe. And so I've ghost produced some stuff for people, signed NDAs, so I can't really talk about what it was. But it was, it's just like a fun thing that I do. And now that, like I'm kind of up and running again, I've been out in LA for a bit. I kind of have a feel of where I'm at. I wanted to get back into it. So I got like an art, fashion, music thing I'm putting together, which is getting me back in front of a keyboard and MIDI and doing some of that stuff. And I'm talking to some producers overseas who I got connected to through a friend, and they've got some cool stuff. And we were, I don't know what shape it's going to take. Like, I'm not like a rapper. I'm way too old to be rapping in the game, Nobody wants to hear about Hill in the backseat with the burner. Like, that's not, that ain't really what I'm going to be about. But like, I might, I'm probably going to produce some stuff. Maybe I'll get some cool features on a couple tracks. Like, but like, try to blend everything I'm into. So it'll be, a little bit of synthwave, a little bit of dark bedroom pop, a little bit of hip hop, and let's just see where it goes. And so that's just a little extracurricular thing that I'm doing. But lately I have been listening to not exclusively hip hop, but getting into it. I wasn't listening for a long time, and then I remember one day I was watching YouTube and somebody said something and I had no idea what he said. He was talking about like some with the little poop and the peep and the what. I'm like, who? And so I had to kind of look through and get like refreshed into this game because I was like listening to J. Cole like an old head. Yeah. I was like listening, listening to like lyrics.
Yeah.
I come from the time when there were lyrics.
Yeah.
And now when you hop on and like you got these 2-minute songs that are like half a verse and the chorus and that's it.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a track. Was that the track? Like you run it back, you're like, was that the whole track, or are they just sampling tracks now? But getting back into it, man.
Nice.
Now I'm gonna have like every mumble rapper, every SoundCloud rapper gonna be at me on Twitter, like, you old head, you trying to hold the culture back. Listen, listen to Smoke Perp or whatever it is you need to put on, man. Live and let live. We all good. We all good.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But you do graphic design too, right?
I mean, that's on Wikipedia. I don't know where that came from.
That's not true, huh?
Well, I would occasionally mock up a logo, like do some stuff here and there. I mean, I'm not like a graphic designer. I did work in advertising for a little bit after NYU.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe that's where the cross-pollination came from. I mean, I don't know how Wikipedia things get made.
Damn you, Wikipedia.
Yeah, but no. I mean, I think maybe at one point I talked about how I study graphic design, which is true. I do. I study color theory. I read Joseph Albers and all of that stuff. And I think a lot about marketing and advertising and Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message and, that kind of thinking, So maybe from like a weird conversation I had somewhere, someone put 2 and 2 together and got 6, and now I'm a graphic designer. But like, no, not really. I mean, I might dust up a logo here and there. And for like the project I'm working on, I got a little logo stuff that I'm doing. But I'm more, just kind of messing around than I am skilled at it for sure.
So you also mentioned before you were talking about philosophy a lot. You just mentioned Marshall McLuhan. I mean, he's not necessarily a philosopher, but do you when you inject that into your stories, is it like do you like come up with like a story based on like a philosophical concept, or is it the other way around? Like you have a good story, but to make it a great one, are you like injecting that into it?
It's a good question. I mean, for me, I look at stories like they're essays, and they're just fiction, right? And so an essay has a thesis, and the body of the essay is set to prove the thesis, right? In nonfiction, you have what they call direct comparison, where you have the affirmative statement towards your thesis, and then you have the antithesis, and then you kind of, in the story, you have villains and you have heroes, but it's still another version of direct comparison. So for me, it's important to have a theme so I know where I'm going.
Okay.
Like I can't feel good about the choices I'm making if I don't know what the story is about, right? Like plot, yes, character growth, sure. But in order to make the choices, because story is all about reducing the infinite to the one. And the only way I'm able to make the choice is if I'm like, well, which which are the steps that will lead me to Athens, right? But I got to know where Athens is. So that's usually the first thing that I do when if I'm building a pitch for someone, or I'm coming up with a comic book story. I'm always usually starting with, what is this about? And then and sometimes it'll be like a negative thesis, right? And then I'll make the story refuting that or something. But I need that context. Like, I can't just freestyle my way and through it and feel like I get something that's cohesive. It's the same thing if you're like your pen and paper writing, like to a beat or something. Like, if you just spit, I go to club and she showed me some love and throw the doves. And, I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, what's going on? So you need to have like a little bit of context. Like, is this going to be about how difficult it was coming up, or is this going to be about how difficult it is keeping it? It's going to be about love and relationships. It's going to be about the ops that you got now. Like, I don't know, but having a little bit of context to me unlocks creativity. Like, a little bit of restriction unlocks imagination for me. No restriction at all, I think, is a little paralyzing.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
When was your like transition from comics into screenplays?
Oh, well, I kind of came in the game of screenwriting before.
First? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because when I came out of NYU, I was like broke in NYU. I mean, I was like scuttlebucket broke, right? And so when I came out of NYU, I stuck around New York because I could get a day job. And that's where I messed around in advertising for a little while. I worked at Playboy magazine for in the marketing department for like a year, and then I bounced over to Ogilvy and Mather for like a little bit. Then I was at White and Kennedy, but all like super entry level stuff. But I was making a check every 2 and I had benefits, so it was all good.
Yeah.
And I was writing scripts and doing that whole deal. Long story made a little bit shorter. The first blood I drew was from a Dolph Lundgren movie I wrote.
Nice.
Back when I was like 23 or something, man. And so that was like the first thing I did. And then I would just kind of write scripts and, and see if that was working. And the comic thing, it's kind of I bumped into that. Like, I met Nelson when I was in New York. And so through him, I met a bunch of comic book guys. Like, I met Damian Scott back when he was working on the Batgirl stuff. And like, I met, Afua, Felix Serrano, the colorist, like just a lot of different heads, because there was a Starbucks in New York where they all used to gather around like this big round table. And that's back when they were drawing on vellum, and they were bringing these little lighting tables with them, right? Wow. They were plugging into the walls. Huh. This is before Starbucks was on some turn and burn. This is back when they would like let you buy a cup of coffee and stay there.
Yeah.
And so I would hang out with these cats, and then we would just talk story. And that's what got me into the social climate of comics. But I was still doing a lot of screenwriting at the same time. And to be honest, nobody in comics was messing with me until I sold a script to Universal and came out to LA, and that was really what it was, because I had a little Hollywood dust on the shoulders. I think comics is, if you're interested in doing like big 2 or major indie, I think pound for pound, comics is the more difficult business to get in.
Really?
I feel like in Hollywood, you could crawl out from under a bridge, and if you have a cool screenplay, somebody's probably going to do something with it, at least pick it up from you, and get you in. Now, you might fall out of the game as soon as you got in. It happens all the time, right? But like, it's more, not a meritocracy, because there's other stuff that goes along with it, but I think it's more of a product-based business.
Yeah.
Comics feels way more like, some of it is about how good you are on the page. Some of it is about like, can you help sell the book? Some of it is about like, have you worked for somebody else, so I'm not taking a risk on hiring you? Like, there's a lot of other factors, right? And it didn't really reach out to me, because I had people from both companies tell me that I didn't have a chance of ever working for Marvel and DC. Wow. Before I, was in comics. They're just like, you're trash, go away, kill yourself. Jesus. And I'm on some like, I'm on some like Marshall Mathers, man. So I was just like, okay, I'm on, lyrical, miracle, spiritual. And so I did whatever. I just factored that in, like whatever. Oh, you too? Okay, cool. You win the book, You
could still write Dear Stan.
Yeah, exactly, right? And what I mean, I don't hold grudges, right? Success holds no grudges, so it's fine. But like, it just was an example of how difficult it was. So it wasn't until I was a little Hollywood, I'm not a lot Hollywood now. I'm like, but like I had sold something, and whatever, then suddenly my comic book writing got a lot better.
Huh.
Fancy that, right? And so that's what kind of did it. And then then I was able to do Postal for a while, and that kind of opened things up, and that's how I got it. So it's always been kind of both at the same time, But a lot of people know me from comics first, because unless you're writing big movies that are getting made all the time, and very few things actually get made, there's people out there that are making millions of dollars as a screenwriter, and you've never heard of them because the movies never get
Absolutely.
made. So I think my first public face was through comics, but yeah, I was doing screenwriting before.
Nice. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Because real talk, comics don't pay that much.
That's after talking to a few comic book creators on our show. That's what we've come to the consensus of.
Yeah, Detective Comics ain't by this chain. I'll just say.
Well, I wanted to say about the way your comic writing is. Maybe there's a better way to say this, but it's so cinematic. Like the beginning of Chariot, it's like no words, just beautiful, beautiful art showing just crazy action happening, setting up, the origin of this car, I guess.
Yeah, well, that whole project was really about me wanting to work with Priscilla.
She's great.
Priscilla Petrates, the artist on Chariot. Her and Marco. Marco does the colors. She does the pencils and the inks. I was a huge fan of her work for a long time. Just like, I think I just found her on the internet. She was like posting up stuff, and then she had done a book for Aftershock that I thought was kind of cool. And then I reached out to her, and then she just turned out to be like a really cool person too. So I was always thinking about, man, I really want to do something with Priscilla. And the Big Two stuff that I was doing, it was never really a hand-in-glove fit for her style, I felt. Because there's like a sexiness to it. Like there's a very kind of graphic art quality to it. Like, it's like you could easily make a streetwear line off of her stuff and probably just crush it in the t-shirt game, And I wanted to do something that I thought was a good no pun intended vehicle for her ability, right? And so when AWA reached out to me asking if I had a project, I was like, well, let me see if Priscilla wants to do something, because this would be a good fit for us because we're doing something new. We can kind of build it towards our strengths. So I asked Priscilla what she was interested in drawing. And she's like, I kind of want to do something cool. And, I love drawing women, but I like drawing dudes too. But, I wanted to be like, kind of, sexy and like kinetic. And I'm like, okay, well, I have this idea about this car and this thing. And so I kind of ran it by her, and she responded to that. Then that's really what got that started. So the reason why the book opens up the way it does is I wanted to let the reader know that this is really going to be an art-focused experience. Like there's a lot of manga influence on it. In fact, like if I could pick how it would come out, it would have come out in like a digest format.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
On like some Gunsmith Cats or something, right? Because like, and then I was really into Tsutomu Nihei when I was working on Chariot, and he's the guy that does Blame and Knights of Sidonia and all that. And if you look, I think it's Blom is actually how you're supposed to pronounce it, but I'm gonna call it Blame because I was born in Chicago. That book is Biomega. He did that one as well. Those books are very visual, right? Like if you look at Biomega, I think you got like a caption on the first page, and then you're flipping through for a good 10, 12 pages before you get like real dialogue, right? Even when dialogue comes, it just kind of dips in, dips out. So I wanted to do something with a bit of a more manga-like approach where you didn't have to slow your experience down to catch the words. Like American Carnage is a slow your experience down and catch the thing, like that's American Carnage is when that's like me as like Nas. That's when I have bars. You got to like focus on the bars on that. On Chariot, it's more like Lil Baby or something, I got the auto tune going, and got Father on this regular, and I'm just like kind of in there, and you're just supposed to like kind of ride with it and be in the pocket.
Yeah.
And note, internet, I said Lil Baby. I didn't say the baby. So don't start bringing your stuff to me on Twitter. I said Lil Baby. There's two babies.
So the way you talk about
Bryan Hill supports the baby. Listen now.
We're gonna have a lot of people come at you after this interview.
Oh, I'm sure no jumpers coming for me, and academics is gonna have me on there. Will you believe what this guy said? No, it's all love. I love everybody. No beef. I'm like Pharrell. I just love everybody.
Dude, love Pharrell. We talked about Chariot and the like very bright, like everything. You love synthwave. You have a very almost like geared towards 80s, kind of like in all of your writing and stuff. Is that like because that's when you come from? Like what? Like I don't know. It all has a similar vibe and almost texture to it.
For sure. I mean, a lot of my aesthetic sensibilities come from, I guess kind of like the edgier side of the late 80s and early 90s in terms of aesthetics. Like if you go to my Instagram, you look at my portraits, for instance, they're very kind of early 90s in their vibe, like a George Michael video kind of thing is smoky eyes and like black backgrounds and high contrast and everyone looks hot, but they all look sad. Like that's kind of like where I live there, and like a touch of the late 80s too, and but my 80s is different. Like when the 80s resurgence happened, right? And I think that cycle. I mean, I guess no cycle really goes away anymore because of the way culture works. But like it was usually Spielberg, Amblin. Right. And I dig that stuff. I mean, I grew up on Spielberg movies like everybody else, the whole thing. Right. But I didn't see a lot of like Tony Scott, or like Adrian Lynn, like the 9.5 Weeks and like the Flash Dance and, like that kind of vibe, like Oliver Stone on some like Wall Street, like a cell phone as big as your leg that you're holding up to your head, and so that's kind of more of my 80s. It's like the sexy little dangerous 80s. I slipped and fell into synthwave from like it was really pandemic, the lockdown stuff, because I'm just sitting at home and watching YouTube, not going out anywhere. I bought a treadmill so I could keep fit while I was kind of locked down, and I would just like look at YouTube and I'd put on like lo-fi playlists and whatever, and sometimes you would get to like a kind of vaporwave, whatever, and I would listen to that. And then there was a YouTube channel, Pat Chennington is the name of it. A little play on words on his channel. So shout out Pat Chennington. And he covers a lot of micro genres. So like synthwave, vaporwave, witch house, city pop, like all this kind of stuff. And then I got really into it and then found some artists who I really dug in the space, who were doing like, new music, but had the vibe of the stuff that I grew up listening to on cassettes. And now like a lot of musicians in that space, they've become, decent friends of mine, like I'm happy to support like this guy Calix. He's really, really good. And, I gave him a little fiscal help on a record. So I'm executive producing his current record. There's Primo the Alien, who's really dope. She's a pal of mine, and she's got some really, really great tracks out there. Yeah, and so I kind of got into that space a little bit, and those things certainly affect the work. I try not to do anything that's too explicitly retro, right? Yeah. Like, and the thing about especially LA is if you catch LA in the right spot at the right time, you are in a world of like neon. Yeah. Like it's still there, right? Like you go to like Koreatown on like 10:30 or something. Yeah. When the sodium vapor lights are hitting it, it's like a little green glow here, a little pink glow there, a little blue glow there, and then somebody comes out of a bar with like stonewashed ripped jeans and a sweatshirt and breaks your heart in 4 steps, and you're just like, I love all of this. I love all of this, right? So yeah, it's definitely kind of wrapped up. I think a lot of it also has to do with just the LA. I think if I was in New York, I think I'd probably have a little bit of a different vibe, but been 10 years here in LA, and the LA that I rock with is that kind of Tony Scott Los Angeles, where everything's like a little wet for no reason. Yeah. Everybody's wearing sunglasses. Things only take place at dusk and dawn. Yeah. Like that's kind of where I am. So R.I.P. Tony Scott. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's more what it is.
I like Nightcrawler a lot because it's like a grittier LA. I know what you mean. I'm out here in LA too. I've been here 6 years, and there's a certain music and vibe.
You get it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Especially, I find that when if you're either on Mulholland or if you're going towards Inglewood and you're going down that massive hill, when you can see the entire city, depending on what song is on the radio, it captures the essence of LA.
Yeah, there was a time not too long ago when I was because I'm downtown, I go west when I go into LA, and I was just on the highway, man, and the sun was setting and it caught the palm trees, and I was like, I gotta put some Phil Collins in there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be in the middle of this, and it's kind of I told my Uber driver, I was like, you're gonna lose me for about 3 minutes and 48 seconds because I gotta get back in the pocket here, man. And those kind of things are just, when you grow up as a kid and you're basically living through screens, right? Because I was born in Chicago, don't remember much of it. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, right? And you've seen everything you need to see in St. Louis in 15 minutes. There's nothing else to see, right? It's you've seen every permutation of anything you need to see in St. Louis in literally 15 minutes. So I spent most of my life living through screens. VHS tapes, from the mom and pop store, going to Blockbuster, get the DVDs, whatever it was. And so many things. It's funny, nowadays, a lot of things don't fictionally take place in LA. But I feel like when I was coming up, 70% of media took place in LA. Yeah. The shows did, the movies did. So you were constantly watching LA a lot of the time. And I had this cinematic understanding of what the city was, right? And nice. I think in a lot of ways we never really stopped chasing what we experienced when we were a kid. I think part of me is kind of drawn to it. If you go to my apartment, my joint is all black and chrome, and I got the floor to ceiling windows on some Mickey Rourke shit. You know what I mean? A real smooth and sinister. With the overcoat. So I think it's just that's the kind of thing. And LA has a magical quality of never requiring that you grow up. So there's no stabilizing force out here to tell you to eliminate your delusion. It will support your delusion as long as you want to be deluded.
I couldn't have said that.
It's deep.
You're right. Shit, I've never heard that. But now that I have heard it, I was like, yeah, he's right.
Sounds like a magical place.
Yeah. Oh, it is. But there's all kinds of magic. Be careful.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
See, it didn't kick in. Everyone done forgot. Wait, who got the pizza? Who getting the
pizza? So I feel like one of my favorite things to ask people. I feel like we've already talked about a ton, hip hop, mobster movies, LA, the 80s. Is there any other stuff you really geek out over?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Gaming for sure. I play a lot of video games.
What games are you playing
now? I'm real boring now. I'm playing the tennis game that's part of PlayStation Plus this month.
Is it a tennis game?
Yeah. Back in the day, I was a big topspin guy.
Nice.
Because I would make an evil British fashion model who was also a tennis player, and that would be because I had a whole head fiction. Where she was like the Ivan Drago of tennis players, So she was as tall and had a brutal reach, right? And I would put everything into serve, so I would just ace my way through everything, So I'm playing that. Last thing I fired up. Well, Hades just showed up on Game Pass.
Oh, Hades is so good,
and Hades is real tight. So I mess with that, and on my desk right here, I got a Switch. I have the analog SG Genesis clone. So I rock some Sega cartridges. Like back there, I got
hell yeah, Golden Axe.
Punisher is back there. I got Batman Returns. I got nice. some of those joints. So yeah, I don't have a lot of time to play. I can't just lose myself in the game the way I used to with my schedule.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things I'm dipping into. I enjoyed Cyberpunk. Now, I understand why people didn't, But I didn't for a moment believe CD Projekt Red when they were talking, right? Like, because like, here's the thing. If a game says it's going to do a bunch of things that no other game has really been able to do, then they lie.
Yeah.
Because like, you can't, I mean, a game can really iterate one or two things, right? Basically, like when you're looking at a game, you know, especially looking at like a big budget, open world, third person game, right? Or first person game in this case, right? Maybe they can iterate like, you know, the leveling system, or they can iterate, you know, levels of interactivity in terms of spaces you can go in. They couldn't iterate like 25 core elements of open world gameplay in one game. And like in the Witcher, right? One, people forget that when the Witcher 3 dropped, it was broke when that dropped too. Like we just weren't paying that much attention to it and like kind of forgave it, right? But it was a little broke up when it came out. But also, you're going somewhere on a horse. Horses go slow.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big difference between like, what are you rendering? You're rendering a horse and some trees and occasionally like a flute man that comes and gets, you know, like that's a big difference between rendering buildings, pedestrians, streetlights, traffic.
Yeah.
It's why Red Dead Redemption is so gorgeous, because they got to render like a tenth of what they have to render inside of a GTA.
That's a good point, yeah.
You know, like, you know, occasionally, like you get some people on horseback and they're like, "How you doing, partner?"
Yeah.
And, sure, and then you just kind of keep on moving, you know. But so I just didn't believe them when it came to Cyberpunk. I'm like, okay, I know what this is going to be. This is going to be an open world thing that's going to have like a slight dusting of RPG on it. I didn't for once believe that the choices you were going to make in the beginning were going to really affect like what you were doing later on, because every game says that, and usually, unless it's like a top-down isometric RPG like Disco Elysium or something, it's generally not true, right? Like generally, you have like a couple choices that give you a couple different cinematics, and the rest of it is just icing on top of the cake.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So because I knew all of that, when I fired it up, and it worked because I was playing on PC, you know, and I got a pretty robust build over here. I mean, I got like now my graphics card is old, but at the time it was tight. I had 2080 Ti, and I got an Intel i9.
Damn.
So I had a pretty decent build. Like now, you know, my graphics card is old, busted, and I got to get 30s, but you know, I had a smooth time with it, so I really enjoyed it. You know, and I still fire it up sometimes just to like drive through Night City. You know, just because I got an ultra wide, and so I'll you know, fire it up, get behind the wheel, go into first person mode, and like put some. I can feel it. And, you know, just like going through. You know, so I'll do that. Like so more to answer you, long-winded way of answering your question. I tend to now play open world games where I fire them up and don't do anything. So like Jeremy Pinter or Carrick over on ACG, shout out ACG. He's one of my favorite YouTube channels. He talks about Zen gaming a lot, right? And I'll do that. So I'll get Red Dead Redemption on, and I'll just go fishing for an hour.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that was Animal Crossing for me during the pandemic. Just like,
yeah, man, something to be said for that. You know, like you just don't need the stress of like, you know, combo. Like, I don't need all that. Sometimes it's like, yo.
Yeah, that's why I like playing the Spider-Man game for PlayStation, because I could just swing around the city, and that alone is so fun. Good. You don't have to do anything else; you just really swing.
It's so good, right? And then the music kicks in, you know, and then you really feel like you're on some Spider-Man, because then if something happens, you land and you dust them up, and like, hey, Spider-Man, and you're like, okay, and you go. It's so good.
It's a great game.
So good, so good.
And you play VR games too, right?
I do. Yeah, I got the Quest over there. I know you can't really see it, but I got the Quest 2. Mostly, I do like calorie burn stuff.
Yeah,
you know, like Supernatural, Fit VR. It was Box VR when I was messing with it, but now it's
Box
Fit
VR. Yeah,
you know. So those are the ones I do. There's one that's really cool. Gosh, I forgot what it's called. It is I think something in not Blade and Sorcery, which is also fun, but that's more of a PC VR thing. There's a bow and arrow game that I really like, and I forget what it's called, but it's native to the Quest. Okay. And it's super fun because you move by shooting a move arrow. So that's how you teleport. Nice. And then you've got like long range arrows and explosive arrows. It's a roguelike. So you just kind of go through, kill as many as you can, try to upgrade yourself, the rest of it. I think that one's really cool. But yeah, most of the time it's mostly like calorie burning stuff. I do mess around a little bit with virtual desktop and try and do some productivity inside of it.
Okay.
Nice.
Very cool.
And I will watch Amazon Prime has a really good app.
Oh yeah, their VR is pretty good.
Yeah, like you can get a big screen. So all of those things that have been releasing direct to Prime, like the Kate Beckinsale, she got to like fuck them up because they did something to her movie. I forgot the name of it. Jolt. So like that movie, like anything that's like direct to Prime,
Nice.
I watch inside the headset, and it feels like you're watching it on a real big screen.
Very cool.
Because of the way your viewing kind of ratios work.
Have you tried Big Screen? The app Big Screen?
Big Screen is cool. I don't always want to watch what they have available.
Right.
But like on select titles, I'm telling you, I don't understand in the age of theatrical releases and day and date releases why everyone is just not really jumping on this and saying, hey, like you can watch Dune on a huge screen from home.
It feels that way when you're in there. It really does.
It does. And, and I get what Denise is talking about as a filmmaker and the frustrations with it. I just think like folks should really embrace that, because if we want mass adoption of VR, everyone isn't going to want to put the thing on and then jump around the room like a maniac, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to figure out a way. I think socialization needs to get better with VR.
For sure.
We've got to figure out a way to make it more of a social thing. 2, we've got to really, if we care about the medium, and I do, I think, focusing on content consumption, like what is the most pleasant way we can make, content consumption. And like the resolution of the Oculus Quest 2 is better, which is good.
Yeah.
You don't get much of a screen door, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But the only distributors, streamers that really seem to embrace it, Amazon does. Netflix has an app which isn't great, but it's there.
It's buggy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not. It doesn't feel priority, right? But I think HBO Max should have a robust presence on it.
Sure.
I think Criterion should have a robust presence on it. Because like to be able to watch library movies that I've never seen on the big screen,
right?
With
your friends who live across the country.
Totally, right? Like there's just certain pictures, like I have a decent TV and I can watch things on my television. It's nice, but we're at like 60, 65, I think, in my main room, which is a big TV, but it's not the same as when you're in there and you have like this big scalable screen. So if we're worried about the streaming releases ruining the theatrical experience, I think the answer is found within VR, and I just wish companies would invest more into that, because I think content consumption could really get headsets in more homes, which is ultimately what everybody wants. So just get me on the phone with Zuckerberg, man. I just gotta talk to the Berg a little bit. We'll throw down a little bit. Well, yeah, he likes to grill in his backyard like a normal human being, right? So I'll grill some burgers or whatever it is, man.
Like a normal human.
You remember that when he was grilling? He was like, I'm totally normal
human.
Yeah.
I'm like, heating up protein just like you.
Smoked meats.
It's like, ooh, boy.
It's funny, when you were talking about socialization and all the VR stuff, you made me think of like, what if they did, if you have like silent discos at like music festivals, like a VR silent disco could be sweet. We can just like,
there's so many. I think, interactive gaming stuff seemed like such a no-brainer that so much thought went into gaming, right?
Yeah.
That I think the social aspects are pretty neglected. And I think the content consumption aspects are also like when I just stumbled onto the Amazon Prime app and watched something and I'm like, whoa, this is dope. Like, I remember what I was like some old 80s movie that I'd never seen on a big screen. And it will never be on a big screen, and I was able to watch it and I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, that's when I came out of the headset, like telling my friends like, yo, you got to get a Quest. This is crazy. So like when I watch Blade Runner 2049, man, it's strictly Quest because I'm in, I'm like right in the thing with it. So hopefully we'll get some more of that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know you got to go soon, so I just want to ask one question. What comics are you reading now? If you are reading any comics.
Man, really the only two things I've been really keeping up with, just due to schedule, not interest, is Ben Percy's Wolverine stuff that he's doing over there in Marvel, because Percy is just a beast, man. Like I have so much admiration for that dude. He's just such a solid dude, and great writer. He's a great novelist. He's a screenwriter. I think he just had a movie produced. from one of his scripts. He's great in comics. I just have a lot to admire about that guy. And he's
even
just a
does
real
like the
dude.
Marvel like podcast too.
Even as a Marvel podcast. I mean, Percy's just a real dude,
Nice.
you know, and he's very, very good at his job. And then the Blade Runner comic book that I'm really into. You know, I think that's like Mello Brown is working on that.
Yeah, I just picked one up
really cool.
last week for Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, I got to hang out with Mello. We had lunch not too long ago because we both kind of live semi near each other, and he's a really, really sharp cat. Like that's a dude that's going to be doing a lot of real big things coming along. So he's going to be. I mean, he's not really up next; he's up now. But just like keep an eye on Mello Brown though. He's going to be doing some good stuff.
Well, shit. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It was great.
Yeah, dude.
Sincerely.
Well, thank you for having me, man. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. And
this was a great time.
Yeah, great time.
I'm really grateful.
Welcome back anytime if you want.
Right
Dude,
on.
thanks so much. This was a really treat for me.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh, right on. Well, I appreciate you fellas having me on,
Amazing talk.
Yeah, thank you, Bryan Edward Hill, for coming on. It was a blast. We'll see you guys next time.
Stay safe out there. Drink water.
Yes.
You too, man. Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jake F.H.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's Comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo! Peace.